Well, Joel, thank you so much for helping my project. Could you say a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name's Joel. I live in Oklahoma City. I work for Cisco. I'm an engineer, and I'm excited to be a part of this.
And did you know that NASA is planning to send people to the moon in 2024?
Yeah, I did. My kids are nerds. Being nerds is, I guess, cool now. So yeah, my kids are very up to speed on a lot of that technology and kind of the future of space. And of course, they they're well versed and tell me all about what's going on with Bezos and Elon Musk and all that stuff.
Well, I'm kind of curious and maybe some of the things that are top of mind. What have they talked about recently?
I guess that my understanding is that people ask, why do we go to the moon? We're not going to go there just to go there. We're actually going to go there and be a little more productive or a little more efficient. Not to say that all the Apollo missions weren't productive and efficient, but it sounds like we're actually going to do things that will give us the ability to continue on a lot of the technology. So understanding the going to the moon in the 60s gave us the capabilities to do a lot of things that we use today, whether it's computers or Velcro or whatever. And then being able to, I guess, harvest some of the minerals, the silicon, actually within the moon, we can do some pretty cool stuff. My hope is that more people will do things like what you're doing to evangelize this, because we do a bad job of not communicating things, which then turns into misinformation that then leads to conspiracies and just, all sorts of ridiculousness, it feels like.
Well, yeah, and I think there's some conspiracy theories that we never went to the moon. In fact, I've interviewed one person that said, "I hope we make it there this time."
Nice.
But there is one thing that people who have doubts about the original moon landing say that doesn't sit well with anybody, and I think that is, if we could go to the moon, why do we stop?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess it got expensive. Someone had to pay for it. People stopped paying for it. Taxpayers demanded things. We do have a handful of problems here on our own planet, mainly taking care of this planet. So, I mean, I can be empathetic to all sides here, and that's why I hope that there's enough. I hope that there's enough information and enough folks that are evangelizing and communicating this and its true points as far as that we can all understand. That's what I hope.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. You talk about, not you, but people talk about renewing like our nuclear arsenal, and you look at the cost of that, and it's about equivalent as going to the moon. And you're like, on one hand, it's the destruction of the world, and on the other hand, it's the potential to discover something. But yet, I bet you if you put those two options in front of people, a lot of people would choose the nuclear arsenal.
Yeah, which is pretty disturbing, right? It's literally you just described the destruction of our planet, and it's a scary thought. And somehow that gets politicized and twisted, and someone sees it as nationalism or some sort. But I don't know. It's a scary thing.
Well, I mean, so we go to the moon in 2024. What would make it worthwhile for you?
My hope is that we can learn and we can do things at a better way, and we can rely on the data and not, like I said, make it part of a politicized, divisive thing. And we can say, oh, it's actually better that we get energy from these places versus the way we've been doing it for the last 60, 70 years. I believe in data. I love to be able to look at data and where it makes sense. And I think we should change our minds in events where it's obvious. And I hate that I have to keep repeating this, but when things get politicized and changed to where it's just the way we've always done it. So I hope that we look at it in a way to where we can do things efficiently, to better ourselves, to better where we are on our own planet, as well as to better ourselves for if we're going to go explore other things. My understanding is that if it's to make us so that we can be more prepared for other planetary exploration. Is that true?
It's definitely a part of it. I think part of the challenge with us going to the moon is not it is having too many reasons to do so.
Right.
Like, I mean, one reason is to get there before the Chinese, and another reason is to.
Oh, the Russians are going back too, aren't they?
They are with the Chinese, but the Russians aren't funding their program to the same extent as they did back during the Cold War. And they lost a major revenue source whenever NASA started being able to launch its own astronauts again.
Right. We were using a lot of their launching to get there. That's true. Thanks to Elon, right?
And on top of that, United Launch Alliance, who launches all the military payloads, was using Russian rocket engines. And now they're having to switch over to rocket engines made by Blue Origin.
What's that one company that does the carbon fiber rockets?
Oh, Rocket Labs?
Yeah, that looks really cool. That's an exciting company as well.
And they're talking about being able to launch people at some point. Kind of.
Yeah, and then someone had also talked about that one of the purposes of the self-landing or the re-landing rockets was to actually so that it's the next generation of the oh shoot, what's the plane that would break the sound barrier?
Oh, Concorde.
Yeah, so it's the next version of the Concorde. So you and I could go to Europe and we could get there in an hour and 15 minutes, whereas before it would take us 5, 6, 7 hours to get there. That's exciting.
Yeah. Of course, on the other side of that, you look at the pandemic and you're like,
right. We're just going to spread it that much faster.
Exactly. You have an outbreak in this one little terminal, and then suddenly it's literally
everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. Yeah, there's a lot of unintended consequences. I don't know. So is it also the theory that we're going to stay up there and we're going to colonize? Is that part of it as well?
That's why there's definitely certain organizations like the National Space Society, of which I have like a local chapter that I run called the North Houston Space Society, who really promotes like the settlement of space and using space resources for the development of Earth. But in terms of the official U.S. government position, there's no plans for colonization or settlement at this point. It's just strictly exploration and discovery.
And then once we're up there, we'll harvest a lot of the things, but then we'll also still need to get some asteroids as well to be able to do full harvesting of like solar arrays and other equipment.
Yeah, a lot of the, first of all, I don't think we have a good idea on all the resources available on the moon and, what it would take to actually turn them into something useful. But you do have a lot of asteroids also that you could harvest. And a lot of it might depend upon what you want to do and where it is. I mean, these asteroids are in orbit around the sun.
Yeah.
And a stat that blew my mind was, if you look at the sun, it's emitting energy in all directions all the time.
Yeah.
And if you were to construct a sphere that was at the same orbit as the Earth, and you looked at the proportion of the sun's energy that fell on the sphere versus that which actually fell on the surface of the Earth, like the difference between that proportion is like 1/700 billionth. So like there's
so much more available energy that we somehow could be capturing. Yeah, that's pretty exponential.
And it's like already being generated. The only thing you have to do is capture it, And from Cisco's standpoint, data centers in the sky. You have all these like workloads.
Literally in the cloud, right? Not just a.
Yeah. You have like workloads for like protein folding and encryption and kind of a lot of data analysis tasks that you don't need
Yeah.
high connectivity but are computationally intense. So you can have almost free power to run those workloads and
Right.
then just get the results whenever it's ready.
Yeah, I remember there was studies done years ago that the energy needed to drive IT was far, far more than the cost of IT. And people had never really, so they started to build, more efficient data centers and, thermodynamics built into it. And then, it became an easier conversation about, shipping things to AWS or Azure, even though it felt like it was more expensive, but in reality of it is building those data centers was far more expensive. So I guess I'm curious, what do you do and how in the world did this, how did you get interested in starting this project?
Yeah. So I work in the software industry for a company in California, but I work from my house in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
And I work in their customer support group, helping some of our, premium customers. So space is sort of like the career not chosen, because back
Yeah.
whenever I got out of high school, the internet was like really taking off, and anybody who had any computer interest got kind of sucked up into that, and then
Right.
one job leads to the next, leads to the next.
Yeah.
Uh, but 2019, NASA announced they plan to have people on the moon in 2024. In November of 2019, NASA hires a associate administrator to be ahead of their human spaceflight operations, called Doug Laverio. And Doug is tasked with getting us to the moon on 2024. So what he does is he has a lapel pin that has a number of days to the end of 2024. And he's going around NASA highlighting a NASA person, that's like the NASA person of that day. And he's counting down and promoting it on Twitter. And anyway, in December of 2019, I see this and I'm like, why not interview everyday people? And I mentioned that to my niece, who just happens to be visiting me, and she's like, yeah, you should do that. Next thing I know, I'm in this project, and here we are.
How many interviews have you done so far?
About 575. So wow. I started at 1840, and I think this is like 1,260 something. I have to look at the site to be sure. But
and overwhelmingly, are these people you knew, or just people that introduced you from one to the other?
Well, actually, when I started the project, I had been working at home for several years before starting the project.
Right.
And I saw it as a reason to push me to get out of the house and talk to people, like at Starbucks and at the mall and things like that. So my plan was,
so you just approach people randomly and start talking to them about this?
Yeah.
Nice.
Like, hey, did you know we're sending people to the moon in 2024? I'm doing this project. Can I interview you? So
nice.
Sorry about that. It looks like something, a call, I guess. I would just interview them. And that's one thing you'll notice, is that the interviews before March of last year were a lot shorter than the interviews after March of last year.
Right. A lot more virtual interviews too, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, after March, I had to go online because, COVID lockdowns and all that stuff. And so, I mean, it kind of changed the project, but at the same token, it maybe enriched it a little bit, because I got to interview people in like Egypt and Pakistan and India and Chile and Argentina. And,
oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. So I've been bugging high school friends, previous coworkers. I tell them, if you want to stop bugging you, just do the interview, and then you're done.
I think it's, like I said, it's creating awareness and creating the communication and getting people to talk about it. Is so helpful. And like I said, it does more good than obviously not. But if we can eliminate some of the misinformation, I think that can go a long ways. I'm very excited about the future. It's been a rough year for COVID, obviously, but I'm excited of the abundant opportunities that we have as far as we can learn from that. it's going to be tough for some industries, obviously, because, well, they may not have much of a place going forward. And I have lots of friends and families that are in industries like that that are going to be impacted by that. But my hope is that we can learn from a lot of things, and when we stretch our imagination and our knowledge by doing things of going back to the moon more efficiently, then we get smarter in other areas. I think.
Yeah, I mean, just to encourage people to look up at the moon and go, hey, there's people up there.
Yeah, that I didn't think about that, but that would be something. I mean, people have high-powered telescopes and cameras now. They could probably actually take pictures of people that are up there. That would be pretty cool. Been doing a lot of audiobooks in the last 5-6 years, and lots of interesting things about the future. And one book that I listened to while I was driving was called Abundance. And it talked about how at one point, a guy by the name of Peter Diamandis, he's a futurist. So I don't know if you've heard of him, but really, really interesting guy. And he talked about how at one point, aluminum was one of the most rarest metals on Earth until someone figured out how to actually make aluminum from multiple different things. And now it is the most abundant metal on Earth. In fact, we don't even make aluminum anymore because we have so much of it. We just recycle it. But at one point, it was more valuable than gold. In fact, a lot of people know this, but it's at the apex at the top of the Washington Monument today.
Really? I had no
Yeah.
idea. I always thought it was like topped by gold or something.
No, it's aluminum, because it was at the time it was a very large block of aluminum that was pretty hard to find, and they, for some reason or another, they decided to put aluminum at the apex of it.
Yeah, I mean, and now you use it to store sodas and wrap
Right.
sandwiches.
Yeah, they don't even make it because it's so abundant. So I mean, what is that what's gonna change, and also what's going to change as far as 100 years from now? We don't know. There's another book that I've read by a guy named Yuval Noah Harari. He did Sapiens, Homo Deus, and then 21 Lessons. And we don't know, hell, we don't know 20, 30 years from now what life is going to be like. He said the most important thing is that we know ourselves. We have an emotional intelligence, and that includes the ability to have curiosity, empathy, and those things take us a lot further than what we had realized before, because they spur on other ideas and other emotions.
Yeah, I mean, Peter Diamandis, he's also the creator of the X Prize Foundation.
Yeah.
And Ansari X Prize was one of his early projects, which was, had flown essentially what Richard Branson had done. That was the winner of the Ansari X Prize back in like 2004. So it's kind of neat to see that last week. But I mean, you're totally right. I mean, so several things. One is, aluminum is such a useful thing. We build airplanes out of it. We use it for building buildings and all sorts of things. And, the idea of using a metal as like a storage of value almost seems like a waste. Like gold has real physical properties that are useful. But since it's like valuable monetarily, we don't use it as widely as we could.
Right. I mean, I think it's a very conductive, like in some of the older circuit boards, you would actually, they had actual gold in them as well. But for some reason, we see value in it for jewelry for whatever reason.
And diamonds.
Yeah. That's another crazy thing that I guess the De Beers family owns. They control the price of the diamonds. Like they release as far as how many diamonds they want out based on what they want the price to be at, which is quite interesting. And there's a lot of things growing up that you don't realize, that you kind of have I think it's a red pill moment where, like I learned that 100 years ago, all the manufacturers of light bulbs agreed on the size of the filament. So the light bulb would burn out at the same time, and they'd have to come back and buy another light bulb. Otherwise they could make incandescent light bulbs that lasted, years beyond what they did.
That is kind of curious. And of course, more recently you have printer ink cartridges, but that's a whole other story.
The what cartridges?
Printer cartridges.
Oh, I hate
Yeah.
printers.
Epson has that whole, just buy a tank of ink and print away.
Yeah, I've seen they change that now. I mean, they're gonna get you either way, so it'll happen.
Well, I have a question. Do you own a washer and a dryer?
Yeah, yep, own them both.
Have you ever done something with the clothes out of the washing machine other than put them in the dryer?
Ever done something with the clothes? Wash. Oh, you mean like hang them out online?
Or anything? I mean, I find myself, I'm always taking clothes out of the washer and putting them in the dryer.
So when I was little, we didn't have a dryer, and we lived out in the country, and so we would actually hang our clothes out on the line, and I didn't like it because they got real stiff. And I remember when we finally got a dryer, how nice it was, and you'd have to go out. And I remember I've dropped clothes in the mud and stuff, and I get in trouble for that. But yeah, I mean that's pretty common sense. I'm curious, where are you going with this?
Well, I mean, like this is like humans are kind of stuck between the washer and the dryer. But like this is a simple engineering problem that you would think that somebody would create an efficient washer dryer combo, and we would all move over to that.
Oh yeah, I think so. I think about that, and also I think we could do a better job on our clothes. Like I think it's so wasteful that I have to change my clothes every day. Well, I didn't do that very much during a lot of the lockdown, so shame on me for that. But there's also things that we can do. So my son and I did a 100-mile backpack trip.
How many days?
It was 11 days, but that included a day of training. So it was 10 days in the backcountry. And so we had to, I mean, you can only bring a pair of pants, a couple of shirts, a couple of pairs of socks, underwear. And so you had to be really efficient and have, really good quality of stuff. And then you learn that there's some certain things that have nickel made in them. They're antimicrobial, or probably said that wrong, but they have what they call a funk factor that doesn't build up. And so why don't we have clothing? I mean, it's all cotton, and it's, we have so much I go into my closet and I have so much clothing when I usually wear the same 6 shirts and shorts on a regular basis. So yeah, I'd like to fix that problem. Of course, that's me and my lack of style, where I'm going to wear the Cisco polo on a regular basis. But yeah, the washer, aren't there combo washer dryers in Europe?
There are, yeah. I use them too,
Yeah.
and they seem reasonably well. I had a hotel room that actually had one right in the hotel room. It's so cool, you just like
Oh wow.
throughout the week, you just put it in the unit, and whenever you get enough in it, you just start it, and now you have dry clothes and they're clean.
Yeah, I don't. Why do we do it that way? Is it a size or the scale issue? I don't know.
I think it's a habit issue.
There used to be the notion that the electric car got killed by the big three and partnered by the big oil companies, and that may have been true. I don't know, but the reality of it is that then in the 80s or the 70s, when they were coming out or testing with electric cars, had everyone bought an electric car and plugged it in, they would have overtaken the grid. It wouldn't have been able to support it. And now we're even off. I mean, you know very well in Texas that we're having grid issues as well. So what is that going to mean when people more and more are buying electric vehicles? I don't know.
I mean, the rooftop solar, it seems like a no-brainer. It's
Right.
just we got to. I mean, it would be cool to have like some cheap like roofing material that you just put on top of the roof, and it's almost like more expensive not to have solar.
Yeah. It's just, I guess we don't. Maybe it goes back to, we still have really bad batteries, and so they don't do a great job as far as what they could be doing on the storage. But yeah, I'm excited about electric vehicles. I have friends in oil and gas, and I explained to them that, look, most electric vehicles are powered by natural gas and coal. So I mean, they're not completely, obviously independent, and they're not made of sunshine and wind, but you still need, and then the petroleum compounds that makes the plastics and stuff. But I love the idea of the intelligence that's put in the car, the safety that's put in the car. Yeah, I'm looking forward to get an electric vehicle someday. It'll be fun.
And also, I mean, like to your point, you could use coal and oil to generate electricity, or you could use hydroelectric, or wind, or solar power, and you
Yeah.
can use all those interchangeably to charge the same car. Whereas if you have a gasoline powered car, you have to have gasoline.
Right, but it's built into the infrastructure today. So it doesn't matter that we spend the same amount of hydrocarbons getting it out of the ground than we got out of the amount that we got out. It doesn't matter because we have the infrastructure, we have filling stations, we have, you know, pipelines, we have all that stuff in place. So we're okay with that. When the reality is that, yeah, we could do it. We could do it a lot more efficient. And I'm convinced that it'll all be nuclear in 20, 30 years. I mean, once the old fogies die off and people that are scared of nuclear, that, I mean, that's the way to be. Every smart person I ever talk about is like, oh yeah, nuclear's the way that it'll go. We're too stupid to get over ourselves yet.
Well, I saw a advertisement or promotional from like that was featuring a Ford car that I think was in like from the 1950s. And it was kind of like a proof of concept prototype thing, a nuclear car. Like it would have a nuclear.
So there was a reactor inside of it.
Well, they didn't actually get that far, but they kind of said this is where the reactor would go, type thing, you know.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, but if we can have nuclear power plants that are safe and delivering electricity to home, and we have good batteries, then maybe we don't have to go that far. But I mean, isn't that like most seagoing vessels have reactors built into them today?
Definitely in the Navy, yeah, for the submarines and you know, aircraft carriers and destroyers. Yeah. And it's brilliant. You don't have to worry about fueling them up.
No, but it does make you think about, you know, car accidents in a different way now.
Yeah. I mean, it is one thing, you know, having a car accident, you have like this gas fire, and then you have like this car accident, you have like this huge lithium stuff burning, and then you have this other one that's like a big crater with like a mushroom cloud, you know.
Yeah, we need to rethink that one, I guess. Maybe I'm one of those old fogies scared of nuclear now.
Talking about, well, I know my whole point about asking about the washer and dryer was, you know, a lot of us, and you know, the abundance. I mean, Peter Diamandis and his whole abundance mindset. I haven't read his book or listened to it yet. I have read the, you know, the 3 books by the other gentleman.
Yuval.
Yuval,
yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, I like it. It's really, you know, he's like, you know, these decisions are gonna be made whether or not you're busy doing other things or not. You know, you need to participate. So.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, no. Yeah, you go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, just kind of back on Yuval. It's you kind of have to be cautious, and even, you know, on this recording, I feel like I have to be cautious about this because I have very, you know, good friends and family that you talk about this kind of stuff and it's offensive to them. So, you know, I really want to be more about the data and just say, look, this is what we know and this is what it is. You know, I can't remember what it was. Oh, it was Inherit the Wind. I saw it on Amazon Prime the other night and I watched it. And for just the kind of the cliff notes of it, it's about at some point in the early 1900s in the state of Tennessee, it was illegal to teach anything that contradicted the Bible. And so it was based on the Scopes trial or the Scopes monkey trial. So where, you know, evolution was always enwrapped in as far as we came from monkeys. Well, that's not what evolution is or was ever. But it's interesting because to have these conversations, it's hard to talk to people that have been that have had a belief system, and I grew up that way as well, and it's a bit of a challenge to kind of to go down that path and understand and maybe look at that. But the science of it all, and specifically the 21 lessons I like the most was, the ability to know thyself and to really understand when you're being overwhelmed with serotonin, or you're being overwhelmed with oxytocin, or you're seeing an ad, or you're seeing something from social media that immediately triggers that amygdala, and to be able to go, oh, I'm getting wound up on this, and that's exactly what they're wanting me to do. And I'm like, I need to chill out. I need to go on a walk and release some of my own hormones. That's been a real, I don't know, eye-opening concept for me.
Yeah, I think Inherit the Wind, there's an acting company here in Houston, Cone Man Running Productions, I think, or theater, and they had done a Inherit the Wind
Oh wow!
right before COVID, and that was my first time that I came across the Scopes trial. It's really well done, but that's extremely a good point. And I think a lot of it comes to what we accept as information. Is it something that's handed down to us and we accept based upon who gave it to us?
Right.
Or do we consider information to be something that can be figured out from observation, experiments, tests, refuted, and that type of thing? And I see that as being like the critical difference.
Yeah, and if you really want to get wrapped up in the weeds of it, in the very first book of Sapiens that Yuval talks about, is that we have outlasted all the other sibling species because we had the ability to tell stories and bring hope for tomorrow. And so it is so the dichotomy is it's these things that gave us hope and belief for tomorrow, or for a better day when things were really bad, that had us outlast the Neanderthals and I forget the 7 or 8 other species that were sibling species. So it's weird. It's like we had to go through that to get to where we are now. It's really kind of messes with your mind.
Yeah, it does. And the thought that maybe we intentionally killed them off, according to what he's saying, but that's a whole nother controversial thing.
Well, yeah. So we definitely killed off a lot of the big animals. I mean, when we made it to Australia, we simply had to, because we invaded their ecosystem. We ate food, which call it the butterfly effect or whatever. But I mean, we had an impact then on this planet as we do now. So I don't know. I mean, the crocodile, he's done pretty well for 250 million years, and we've been here for just kind of a speck of the time compared to that. Or the lobster, a lot of it's really interesting. We're going down a deep path now. Is this off track, or is this what it's all about?
Well, I kind of look at this as being like a time capsule for people yet unborn.
Sure.
Looking at humanity right before we enter the true space age, take those next steps on the moon and going forward. Kind of like the context I've talked to some people about is, imagine 100 years from now, there's this Martian high school, and they've been assigned this paper of kind of going back and trying to figure out what it was right before those steps on the moon in 2024 that ultimately led up to the creation of their society. Sort of like what we might have assigned to our high schoolers, to actually go back to the time of Christopher Columbus and say, what was Europe like before Christopher Columbus came to the U.S., or not the U.S., Americas? There's this high school class. Some of them find this collection of videos, and this is like source material for their essays. So that's kind of like the context, I think, of these things. And so this interview might be the reason one of those high schoolers gets the A on that paper.
Holy smokes! No, not this interview. Maybe one of your other interviews. I doubt this one. I apologize. My laptop's spinning up doing something. So if you're not seeing me now, I apologize for that.
Oh, I can still see it. It's just a little jerky or so.
Yeah, the fan spinning up. Yeah, it's It's exciting. My son, he'll talk to you about. There's a recent book that he just read called The High Frontier. Are you familiar with that notion?
Yeah, Jerry O'Neill. And Jerry O'Neill taught at Princeton, and one of his students was Jeff Bezos.
Oh
And
wow.
Jeff Bezos was really inspired by Jerry O'Neill, and that kind of led to Blue Origin and everything. So
No, I did not realize that. But yeah, he asked for that book for his birthday, and kids want for nothing anymore. So it's it's hard to find him. And so when he wants, an $8 book, then that's great for us. But yeah,
that is,
he talked me into it, and then we also he found the documentary and we watched that. I was really excited about it. I mean, it was really kind of interesting to see the concept that we could do. But of course, my mind immediately goes to, I think there was a Matt Damon movie, Elysium, where he goes out to that. And of course, that's the uber elite 1%ers that get to live, and all the rest of us have to live on this dying planet. So of course, that's another thing that is so frustrating, is that every single futuristic movie, maybe I shouldn't say every single, but so many futuristic movies are this dystopia of, somebody went wrong. I guess it would be boring if it was a good happy ending. Have you watched any of the Black Mirror series?
I have, yeah, I watched some. I like Archangel is like one that sticks in mind. Where like they have that parental device they can put in, and you could on one hand you're like, yeah, that's really cool technology, but
I was on pins and needles on Archangel because I just knew something horrific was going to be witnessed or whatever. I knew it, and that they like to dangle that in front of you. I loved San Junipero. That was my favorite one, and that was actually one of the few happy ending ones. White Christmas was really good. The Hang the DJ, that was a really good one. And then, of course, the Callister, those are good. All good ones.
Yeah, the Callister, for us in IT, make sure we read what's included in all those releases. That's
Nobody reads a thing. Nobody reads anything.
We might get trapped in our own virtual world. Anyway.
Yeah, that was pretty dark for sure. But yeah, so hopefully that, I'd like to, sometimes I'll go back and I'll watch older documentaries and like YouTube. I get sucked into a YouTube vortex. That's my addiction now, is YouTube, and I'll watch it for 2 hours straight and I'll realize that it's dark outside now. But I'll find things like they'll have people interviewed on the street in the 1950s and what their opinion was about going to the moon, or what a computer was, or whatever. And people like, if God wanted us to fly, that type of mentality. And so it's interesting. And it's also interesting that a lot of people's behavior hasn't really changed since, the last 70 years either. But I love to be able to go back in that and kind of relive that and kind of wonder what they were going through and what was really at the top of mind. Probably wasn't really much different from what we're going through right now. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. Have you ever watched that series called 24?
Is that the Kiefer Sutherland? And I did, but I swear to God, my heart rate would get spun up every single. We watched one season of it, and then we're like, all right, we're done. We're not doing this again.
There's a parody done by College Humor that's kind of funny. It's called 94, and it's like the same type of scenarios, but using 1994 technology. It's like having to use payphones and waiting for the modem to connect, and
pagers modems.
Exactly. I mean, it's really amazing. A lot of stories probably make no sense to kids these days about people calling people's homes and nobody picking up and trying to figure out where they are. And the big thing is, have you seen Joey? Have you seen Joey? It's like, just call him on his cell phone. Why don't you call? Why are you all calling houses?
Yeah, he's at Walmart right now. I can see him. I'm tracking him right now.
I know.
There's so many plots and so many near misses just because they missed the phone call, or they you know, they weren't there, they didn't get the letter or whatever. And, you know, it's quite interesting as far as, yeah, the internet has really screwed up a lot of plot twists for Hollywood, but they've created our own, so, or new ones, I guess.
Yeah, now instead of not knowing where they are, they know exactly where you are, and that's the plot twist.
Right. Uh,
Why did
yeah, I
you
don't
go to
know.
this? Why did you go to the 7-Eleven for 15 minutes? It only takes 7 minutes to charge your car. Just kidding.
Right, and it's funny, like, can any, I mean, this is going to sound really bizarre that very really off topic that I bring it up, but you know, no person could ever have an affair in this day and age. No one could ever do anything like that, you would think. I guess there's always, where there's a will, there's a way, but yeah, it's you're tracked there. You know, Facebook will see where you're at. You know, you can, something will, you know, I was at a friend's house. She had a surprise 50th birthday party, and she would just anyway, I'm kind of getting sidetracked, but she told me that they were going on a flight to Iceland, and I'm like, oh, I love to go to Iceland. It seems really amazing. And I remember going home the next day, and in my YouTube feed was how to get cheap flights to Iceland. And I thought, well, that's interesting, because I just talked to this person. I was just at home, and I don't believe that it has the microphone on that actually does it. But so I have a brother-in-law. He's an evangelist at Google. And I talked to him about it. And he says, well, it's possible that you had Google Maps activated and they knew that you were at their house, and she'd probably, you know, communicated somehow and done searches, and it probably triggered that you had done a search on Iceland at some point. And the fact that it actually knew exactly where I was, or what I was wanting to do.
Wow. So her IP address was associated with all these Iceland searches. You went to her house. The geolocation put you in the same vicinity as those searches. Now you've gotten tagged with that.
Yeah.
That's so weird. Yeah, I mean, can you imagine like an Uber Eats driver now, you know, is like dropping off some food at somebody's house, and they're looking up some really suspicious stuff, and then all of a sudden they start seeing that stuff on their phone. Somebody sees that and they're like, wow, look at
Well,
what you
so
must be up to.
it's so bizarre. And I remember in the 70s and the 60s, I wasn't alive in the 60s, but I remember my kids and I went and saw the Black Widow movie last weekend. It was a great movie, by the way. And I remember watching the previews before the movie, and you know, they had the ice and the Coca-Cola and the popcorn that really just kind of like, okay, I need to go get that. But in the 70s or the 60s, they would actually put words in the frame of the film that said, go to the concession, or delicious, or, you know, whatever. And they said it was illegal. You could not do that because subconsciously people would actually see that without seeing it. That in itself was illegal, but some of the things and tricks that social media and some of the big tech companies are doing is perfectly fine. It's probably perfectly fine because nobody knows what the heck they're doing or how these algorithms are working. So it's just, I really hope we come to a point to where we can discern that type of, what's the best way to put that? Those techniques are borderline inhumane in the way that we're able to control people. It's nothing new. It's just, you've never had thousands of engineers working on to get your serotonin levels excited about political side A or political side B.
Yeah, they do it so scientifically, you know, without any type of, you know, completely, yeah, it's like, yeah, I don't know.
I think it'll get better. I think once we can have, you know, real privacy laws and privacy that's in plain spoken word that explains, I love the fact that, and maybe I'm just being too naive, but I love the fact that Apple actually has a ability to turn those things off now. I think that's great. I mean, like I said, I'm believing that they're actually doing that, but it's very frustrating. And I don't know that it's super helpful. There was a book I read 4 or 5 years ago called The Power of Habit. and it talks about in 2013, I think, where Target predicted that a girl was pregnant. Have you heard this?
I think I heard a story further back about this guy receiving all these like baby stuff from like Walgreens, ads and things, and he's like, "Why are you sending this? Nobody's here is pregnant." And then he found out his daughter was, or something like that. But
Right. Yeah. So he shows up to the store, talks to the manager, and says, "Sorry, we'll take you off the list. I'll call you back." So he calls him back and he says, "Hey, just want to let you know it was typo or something happened." And he goes, "No, I owe you an apology. My daughter's due in August." And this was in 2013, a long time ago. And so we were able to get down to that level based on purchases or not things that you didn't purchase or places that you are in the store. We gotta have some kind of control on that, I hope.
yeah, I mean, the thing is, you have hackers and you have criminals and you have a whole wide variety of people who, governments even,
Right.
Snowden has been kind of publishing videos talking about the information that the U.S. government collects, and
Right.
they do it to keep us safe, quote unquote. And how long is it before they go from looking for terrorists that are about to destroy a building to people who might just be, kind of against the current ruling party? I mean, like, at what
Right.
at what point does it, do you kind of shift over in that direction?
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of things that are pretty dangerous. I had heard that I did a thing where you spit in the vial and it tells your ancestry, 23andMe, and the CEO, she was talking about that right now China is actually trying to get all of your genome data, all of that bio data from you. And why China cares about that is because they want to actually manufacture the medicines that we need, because it turns out all the medicines that you take, a lot of them may not actually do any good based on your genes. And so they want to actually have your genetic mapping to where they can actually give you custom meds. And then the world will kind of be dependent on China on that. And, that was a crazy thing in China, or beginning of COVID, is that you realize that we got so much from China, all the way down to our vaccines, to our mask, personal protection equipment, all that stuff. Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some plots in movies where, the bad guy creates a virus that is keyed to somebody's specific DNA, and it easily passes along and makes people. Is it Scorpion?
Yeah, Scorpion was that. I remember that. Yeah, that was good.
I mean, that seems so realistic, right? I mean, you could actually have targeted assassination with no effort.
Not to start a conspiracy theory, but some people aren't affected by COVID when they get it at all. Others, they die. I mean, it's very strange.
It is. And it seems to affect older people more than younger people.
Yeah.
And, originate in society that's kind of top heavy right now. I mean, you could go
right.
on.
Right. Right now we're getting down this conspiracy rabbit hole. I don't know. I hope that what we can do when we get to this technology, because hopefully things help us advance, not just from a technological, but also from an emotional standpoint. I hope we can have those kinds of advancements. Someone told me that the neural net will be able to give you some really self-awareness. Like if I'm walking into a meeting, my phone will ding or my watch will ding and it'll say, "Hey, you only got 4 hours of sleep last night, and you had 3 gin and tonics. The last time you were in this situation, you yelled at your boss and almost got fired. So don't talk during this meeting." So those type, or the ability to have like a lens that I can actually, when I'm talking to Nathan, that it says, "Hey, there's something going on with Nathan, be kind," or he's showing some emotional state right now where he's unstable. those types of things. Is that a good thing? I mean, I want to say yes in the right hands, but no, advertiser's going to get a hold of that. And they're going to flood you with every possible thing that they can emotionally sell you while you're in this state.
Well, it's like, have you ever read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
So I mean, there's a part in it where it's like Arthur Dent was okay, except for all the people asking if he was what was wrong with him, type of thing. You may even have a situation where that glasses triggers about this person's stuff as being wrong, and everything's
Right.
okay with that guy. But I would be kind of messed up if people came up to me and say, "Hey, are you okay? You look really bad." They're like, "I guess I must not be doing too well."
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
Uh,
Because we all live up to expectations to some degree, and we're
right,
kind of imposing those expectations on each other.
right. And yeah, the older that I get, I'm more aware and I'm a little more patient. Usually, I would just call people weird, and now I'm a little more patient to the idea that, well, I don't know what's going on with them, or that maybe they're not neurotypical, or maybe I don't know, but yeah, that's been a little bit of my evolution, is that you don't know what someone's going through, and chances are they're going through something really tough at the moment, you know.
Yeah, or sometimes you just have an off day. I mean,
Yeah,
people. I I mean, I think that privacy is so important because uh,
yeah.
we need to be able to go crazy occasionally in private.
Right. My dad said one time, he says, we're all crazy, some of us just get caught.
Yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, we're all getting caught more frequently.
Yeah, well, because yeah, there's surveillance, and someone's going to whip out their camera so they can catch a viral Karen and post it to YouTube, which I will click on it every single time.
Yeah, there's like this medical student in like Florida who went crazy with like her got into the wrong Uber driver. She was drunk and she got crazy with like
She was a doctor. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
yeah,
saw that.
doctor, yeah. And you're like and she like lost her
Lost her
got kicked out of
job, lost her
medical school.
license. Yeah.
Yeah, everything. It's just like uh, it's I mean, it's like a big problem. I mean, there's like now you're always interviewing and at any point you could be fired and
Right.
uh,
Yeah. So I guess to kind of bring it back home, I hope that we can evolve the emotional intelligence. I hope that all this technology is great to go to the moon, but I hope we can use it to evolve who we are, to be better, um, better to each other, maybe a little kinder, a little more patient. Because I think it goes a long ways. Where in the past it's been viewed as almost a weakness, which I don't understand that.
well um the thing is, if you really wanted to create a society that was fundamentally different than like the global culture that's emerging, this techno invasive commercialization type thing, I mean,
Yeah.
it seems like that even if you created like a little intentional community, like it's so pervasive at this point, you would always feel the presence of that outside culture kind of seeping in,
Hmm.
being around, humming about you. But if you were to create like an intentional community on Mars, I think you would have a real chance to kind of reconstitute society along very different lines. And maybe that separation gives us the ability to really re-examine lives. We can, I mean, like the Amish, for example, they have payphones, but they decide not to put chairs next to them, so that people wouldn't sit on and talk on the phone all the day. So they
Hmm.
were really intentional about what technology led into their life.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, try to avoid some of the unintended consequences. But I mean, in order to do that, you have to be mindful. You have to think about the fourth move. So my son, he's big on Mars as well, And he would say that we can't sustain life in Mars. He says that even if we terraform it, just from a gravitational thing, once you're there on Mars, you got to stay on Mars. You can't come back. And I don't really quite understand the physics of the whole thing, but the whole terraforming thing just kind of blows my mind as well. So when he talked about the whole high frontier, that seemed a lot more attractive. That seemed like a lot more. Or there's another thing, seasteading. Are you familiar with that?
I am, yeah. And it looks like we're inadvertently creating a big plastic ocean in the middle of the Pacific anyway.
Oh yeah, the garbage island.
We just need to put some dirt and trees on top and be good to go.
I shouldn't laugh, but yeah. Well, Nathan, this has really been a treat. I enjoy talking to open-minded people like yourself. This has been nice, and I hope it continues to take off. I can get you hooked up with some people if that helps, and you can continue this.
Yeah, if you have 1,260 some odd friends, that would help a lot.
I do not. That's too many people that would like me.
But no, I would really appreciate that, and thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, it was a real pleasure. It was nice to meet you, and hope to stay in touch.
Absolutely. Well, you have a good rest of your evening.
All right, thanks so much. Bye now.
Bye-bye.